Is the William Nylander at center experiment over before it even started? We'll touch on that and play some cosign no sign at the midway mark of Maple Leafs training camp. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, David Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase using Gametime. What's going on, Dave? How you feeling on a Tuesday?
Feeling pretty good. It's crazy to think we still have more exhibition games on tap.
Yeah. Still a couple games to go, and we got to wait a while to even get these games. Like, there's just a long break. The Leafs are going up to Muskoka. Quick little bonding trip this week. Hopefully it brings the team together, and, they can get up there and do some golfing, some fishing, maybe play a little puck. At some point, I believe there will be a practice while they're up there. And we just got to kind of just wait around. Wait a couple more days till we get to watching it. Was it Thursday, Saturday? I think is the final couple of preseason games against Detroit, and then that's it. Then the main stuff begins. The real stuff begins next week against the Montreal Canadiens. And I don't know about you, but I'm definitely more fired up about that game now than I would have been a week ago. Just that there's going to be fireworks based on what we saw happen the other night.
Oh, It'd be very curious if Ryan Reeves is in the lineup for this one.
You're okay. I guess we can have that conversation. We're gonna play cosign no sign. That was gonna be one of my cosign no signs, but I'll do something else. Go into it. No. Talk about it. Go ahead.
See, this is what happens when we don't have the this one's when we are like blind of what our cosign no signs are.
Well, because then it's better and we can actually react to it. But I'm with you. I believe that Ryan Reeves now has to be might now be considered a must for opening night. Do you think that makes it maybe not as a must, but definitely it makes it more likely for him to be on the squad opening night to get retribution or whatever to answer the bell or to make Jack-Eye answer the bell for what he did against Pare?
So part of me wonders how much the organizations really want, how far they want this to go, right? Do they want it to go past what the NHL, as soon as the NHL puts down their ruling with the fines, I'm sure there was a bit of a message to both teams as all right, well, you would think that message would have been sent to both teams. We know you guys are playing against each other now. Again, we don't want to see any shenanigans.
Yeah, but I remember it was the Rangers and maybe the Capitals, I want to say. I think it was a couple of years ago they were playing, and there was an incident, and I believe the player's safety did not suspend the player for what had happened and only fined him, and the player said, fine, we'll take it into our own hands. And the next time that those two individuals faced off against one another, they took it into their own hands. So I wonder if we could see something similar happen here. I don't think it guarantees him a spot on the opening night roster. I was being a little, facetious with that one. But it does make you think I wonder if Revo can, get himself an opening night spot by with this situation. But anyways, Maple Leafs, they head up to Muskoka for a quick little bonding trip. Ben Danford was also sent back down to junior today. He will join the Oshawa Generals, assuming he's been cleared now that he's been sent down, or at least he'll continue his rehab from his concussion that he suffered. Really unfortunate. We never got to see Ben Danford play a single game in a Maple Leafs uniform. Got hurt before the prospect camp, and then obviously was unable to get into any of these preseason games in main camp either.
Well, it's just unfortunate we just didn't even really see him at camp, right? Like,
Yeah.
right. It's not even just getting into games, like even just for him to be around. And I like, look, I am. There's a lot of like questions that even been brought up during camp, not just of Ben Danford, like Topi Niemelä. Where's he been? Right? We
Yeah.
haven't seen him play in any preseason games. Like he's been around at practices, but we haven't seen him play in any games. Like, but we for Danford, that's just the unfortunate part is that he was hurt even before that rookie tournament. Didn't even really get a chance to. It's just like it was one of those players like you heard a lot about him after the draft, and you kind of want to see where he was in his development, how everything was going. He missed out on it, but now we're intrigued to watch the OHL this year.
Yes, this is true. You can watch yourself a little Jens game, get to see Ben Danford. Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a couple of players who you thought might get a look, or we get the chance to see them in training camp and haven't really. And the blue line kind of is interesting. It seems like other guys have just had more opportunity, like Marshall Refi has gotten into a bunch of games, right? Connor Timmins has gotten into a bunch of games for obvious reasons, but they've also just been making sure that they're getting, their regulars in games. And I think it has something to do with the fact that, there's been quite a bit of turnover, and it's a new structure, it's a new system, and they just want to make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page. So they got to play them together, play them in games. Nothing quite, can mimic a live game.
Right.
So I think it makes a lot of sense when you like break it down as to why we didn't get to see much of a guy like Niemelä out there. But it's is what it is, I suppose. I don't think anyone expected him to be ready to make the team or contribute in any meaningful way to the Maple Leafs off the bat. Maybe at some point down the road, if injuries occur, he could end up being a call up. But honestly, it seems like Marshall Refi is kind of that guy now who's going to be, that Marley's next man up, whether it's Timmins or Refi, whoever it may be, will end up being that next man up. All right. Some interesting things came out of practice yesterday. We sort of started to talk about the difference in what we saw at practice. Domi was splitting reps at center with William Nylander, and we were talking about that a little bit, but we heard from Craig Berube after we finished recording to get his thoughts on what exactly is going on. Is the Nylander experiment over? Why are you already kind of turning the page and getting Domi out there? Is Nylander still hurt? Like, what's the situation here? And Craig Berube essentially just said, no, it's still a go. It's not easy playing center. We want to make sure that we get both guys in there to play. Again, new systems. You want both players to be comfortable if called upon. So doesn't sound like the Nylander at center experiment is over as quickly as maybe we thought it might be. Do you read into any of this at all?
Well, I wouldn't say like I when I hear him say like we don't have that right shot guy that can play that can take faceoffs, makes you think that they really are pushing for it. I think they're trying to keep their expectations reasonable with this. Like don't like say, yeah, he's gonna be penciled in as a center day one. But at the same time, you like to have some sort of inkling as to whether he is in the right direction, right? How is that progression work? Because as soon as you see him taken off that spot, like we know he can play wing. I that's the part I think that people are confused about. Is like we know Nylander can play wing, so like to have him now take shifts on the wing and not focusing on being a center, that's the part I think maybe that are getting people thinking maybe they're not as committed to that idea. But I think with the few days left in camp, I think they want to also just make sure that Domi gets a little bit of time there, because if it really isn't working out well between the with Nylander, they are going to have to pivot. And if Tavares' injury is not settled before, I mean, we don't know. They say he's going to be fine for this week. I mean, we've heard players are fine and then they don't come back. Yeah. So I think you have to be prepared for those scenarios.
You know who else is a right shot? Mitch Marner, also a right shot, by the way. You know who else is, though, too? Calle Yarncroc, and he actually does in camp play
I
center.
am so surprised I mean, I know he's
He's been
been dealing
hurt.
with an injury, but I am surprised they had not tried Calle Yarncroc as center for that very reason you said, because he has done it before.
Yeah. I mean, I think they just want, like, for the right shot for face-offs for when it's on the right side of the rink. And I would imagine if Calle Yarncroc's out there, he can do that. Or even if he's on the third line with Tavares, on one side of the ice, Tavares takes the draw. On the other side of the ice, Yarncroc takes the draw. We see that happen quite often, in the NHL. So I could potentially see that being the case. But yeah, it was interesting for Berube to mention, like, the righty lefty thing was a big thing that they wanted, a right shot center, right-handed center at some point somewhere down their lineup, and Nylander would give them that. But yeah, it's going to take some time. Obviously, I did think, listening to Nylander speak at practice, though, saying how it's not a big deal, whether I play there or don't play there. Big difference from earlier in the preseason when asked about him playing center, and he said, "Yeah, well, I spoke to Chief and we're on the same page. Can't just do it for one game. Got to get a real good run, a real good look to learn the position." And now all of a sudden it's like, not a big deal if I play there, don't play there. It's like, that's a little different. I don't know.
Nylander just knows how to like when there's questions
Yeah.
about this stuff, he knows how to handle it. He is very good at trying to make it seem like it's not as big of a deal as it's made out to be. That's just how he is.
Mhm.
But you can tell, like, when you see it, those questions have to be asked, and he's doing a good job addressing them. But it's like doesn't really clear up, I think, what people are thinking, though.
Yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening. I'm sure he'll get into one of these. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe they'll try not to, but possibly he could get into one of these final couple of games against Detroit this weekend. We'll see if he plays down the middle or on the wing. I would imagine he plays at center, but something that we'll see what happens at some point. All right, Dave, let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's play some cosign, no sign. It's been a couple weeks since we played this game, so excited to get back into it. I got a couple of questions for you that I'm curious to hear what you're going to say, how you're going to answer these. So we'll get to that on the other side, and also problems brewing in Boston. You see what I did there? Yeah, we'll tell you about that too. That's all coming up next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NHL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with a $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and David Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday morning, Monday through Friday here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, available wherever you get a podcast and also up on YouTube. All right. For those who are new to the podcast, first and foremost, appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by, and thanks for giving us a shot. Hopefully you enjoy the content that we will be providing all season long. We like to do this game usually about once a week or so. It's been a couple weeks since we played it, though. It's called Cosign No Sign. And essentially the way it works is Dave and I are going to make statements to one another, prepared statements that we have not told each other. So we get the raw thoughts on it. And if we agree with the statement, we co-sign it. If we disagree, then we will no sign it. Dave, why don't you start off? Give me your first statement.
First statement, David Kampf will not be with the Leafs to start the season. He will not be on the roster. He will be gone.
So traded. David Kampf will be traded.
Yeah.
Did you have a word count? Did you have a word count you need to get?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm the English major. I should have just gone straight to the point, but I felt like I needed to go longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Will David Kampf be traded, Mike?
You know what? I'm going to I'm gonna no sign it. I'm gonna no sign it. I am. I'm not sure how many teams out there are looking to bring that on. If he only had 1 year left on his deal, maybe, but there's 2 more years left on that contract. And I don't know how many teams are looking to really, bring that payroll on for a guy who's not going to contribute a whole lot, right? Maybe, could play at 11, 12 minutes a night, possibly kill some penalties for you, but pretty much just going to be your fourth line center. And that's, paying a fourth line center $2.4 million in a world where the cap is such a strong commodity. I just don't know how many teams are going to be lining up to take on that deal. It would take quite the sweetener to make it happen. And I think the Maple Leafs have other trade chips that wouldn't cost as much to rid themselves of. So I think he'll be with the team. I think he's got a place with the team. Like I said, fourth line center. He can kill penalties. I'm gonna no sign. I think he's still here. I hope I'm wrong, to be honest. I kind of gotten to a point where I'd probably rather Holmberg at what he's making as my 4C penalty killer than I would David Kampf. I just don't know if you could find a taker for him.
Yeah, that's pretty much been my issue with all of it. Is I think the Leafs would be fine to trade Kampf. Yeah, you could always do center depth. I get that, but I'm looking at like how crowded it is, right?
Mhm.
And Kampf for what he is making, I've been disappointed, right? And I guess the contract would have been tough to live by anyways, and like the Leafs were in a tough spot. Felt like they were in a tough spot to lose Kampf. Probably would have been a better idea just to let him walk at that, at that rate. But I think, yeah, it's going to be tough if he struggles. How much the Leafs are going to be able to really keep, avoid those questions with him, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that contract's going to be something that's going to be a bit of an eyesore if he's not good this year.
Yes, already is an eyesore. But yeah, totally. All right, I'll keep with the theme of center and kind of going back to the Domi Nylander sharing center responsibilities. Cosign, no sign, Dave. William Nylander will play more games at center than Max Domi will this season.
Oh, will Nylander play more games as center? I'm going to co-sign it, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be by that much. I think you're going to see, like, especially what you're seeing now with the split. I think you're going to see them throw Domi at center quite a bit, but I think they're going to try their best to make Nylander work.
See, I don't think you could flip flop in the middle of the season. I think it's either Nylander's going to work or you don't. You put him on the wing, you let him rip 40. Like that's what I think. So to me, if I feel like Nylander's going to stick at center, then it's a cosign. If I feel like he's not, and they're gonna, maybe lean towards giving Domi some playing time, like eventually they'll just say, okay, let's just, for cohesiveness on a night-to-night basis, let's just put Domi in the middle, Willie on the wing, the way that's more natural for both of these players, and let's go from there and score some goals. Like that's how I feel like it'll end up being and how it should be. Whether or not that's what happens, I don't know. But I don't see them flip-flopping all season. I can't see that being the case.
Yeah, I would hate for them to do that. I was reading an article by Justin Bourne, and he's not convinced that Domi and Nylander make a lot of sense as a pairing as well, right?
Well, I mean, why? I'm curious, actually, because
I think it has more to do with their
defensively, they don't make sense.
That's one of them, and the other is kind of their inconsistencies, right? Like Domi is an inconsistent player. We saw that last year. When he's hot, he's really good. When he's not, his game lacks, right? And so is that going to hurt Nylander, right? Nylander is going to be the driver of the line, but you need Domi to be at his, like, he's going to have to be a little more consistent than he was last year.
Yes. Although last year he spent a lot of time on the third line, not with really guys who you would consider to be, you know, offensively driven pieces, right? Like I think he was a little miscast last year where he was playing. And then when he ended up in the top six, playing on a line with Matthews and getting more offensive zone starts and, getting the puck to guys who could actually score and finish, you saw that production come through. So I actually think that it'll work because I think Domi, great passer, great vision, get the puck to Willie who can finish, who can score. I like it. It's just whether or not, you trust them long term as a pairing defensively. That's where my question would come in. The inconsistency. I mean, Tavares and Nylander were inconsistent too. Like that, they just simply don't really have another guy outside of Matthews, I guess, that you could be like, yep, you know what you're gonna get. Those guys are gonna be, give you 82 games of gold. It's just not gonna happen. Tavares at this point, I think Domi had more points at 5-on-5 at even strength than Tavares did last year, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of moving all around the lineup too. So, yeah, I personally like Nylander Domi, and then you keep Tavares as 3C, but
yeah,
I guess you can end up moving JT up as well.
I prefer JT as third line center, especially if you get like a Robertson and get that right. I don't know. I mean, it's going to look like it could be Pacioretty.
See, I'd want to go full like two-way guys. I wouldn't want Robertson. Yeah. I'd want like Tavares, Pacioretty, and Yarncroc. That's what
I prefer that too. I because I really like Bobby McMahon as a
or Bobby. Yeah. Yarncroc or McMahon, one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
Either works. All right. Why don't we take another break? We'll come back, and then I think you have another one, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So we'll come back. We'll get to the other two, and we'll do that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got Gametime Picks, which curates and makes it easier to save more on your sporting events, your comedy events, your comedy, concerts, theater, etc. They've got all-in pricing. They've got great seat views. You get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And they've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What is it? Gametime. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here. We continue our cosign, no sign segment here. Dave, shoot me your next one.
We haven't really touched on the defense a lot, so I figure we would shift our focus there a little bit.
Okay.
And I look at Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Will Oliver Ekman-Larsson
cosign? Yes, he will overtake Morgan Rielly on PP1. Was that the question?
God damn it! Good one. It's not often you're able to come out to come ahead on that one.
I think that so do I think that he'll overtake him and keep the job? That I'm less certain of, but I do believe that at some point OEL will be given a decent run on the first unit power play. I do think that'll end up being the case. Like we'll see how if things get stale at some point and they gotta, move some things around. I think Marc Savard will not be as married to making sure that Morgan Rielly is happy on PP1. I think if they realize, okay, we actually have someone else who can move the puck the way that Rielly can, and maybe just gives a little bit of a different look, I could totally see it happening. So yeah, I'd co-sign that for sure. We'll at least see it. I think we'll at least see it for sure.
I just think look, we know Morgan Rielly can get points and move the puck around. I just think you need more than that on this power play. Like, I don't know why. Like, especially when they brought in, I don't know why I'm blanking right now. Who did they trade Sandin for from the Capitals?
Oh, Gustafson.
Yeah. When they brought in Gustafson, I said, this is a good opportunity. Yeah, I know that he's not the best defensive player, but one thing he can do really well is produce on the power play.
Yeah.
They tried it a little bit, but they didn't really give it a fair shot.
He got hurt, to be fair. I think he ended up getting injured or something.
Yeah, and he get injured, but then they didn't bring him back. He went to New York, and he was featured quite a bit on that power play.
Yeah, they could put up like 40 points last year.
Yeah. Like, to me, it's like you find guys who can do that, who can produce and not just pass the puck. Like, that was the whole point of bringing John Klingberg in too, was to get that guy that can help the power play, because I think that's what this power play is missing. Because every team now is like, all right, let's go and defend the Matthews one-timer. Let's make sure let's shadow a guy on Austin Matthews. Now, Austin Matthews was still very productive last year. But if you look at teams like Tampa, right, their power play, I mean, yeah, now they don't have Stamkos, which I'm very curious to see how that power play works with those Stamkos.
I mean, Kucherov, Point, they got a guys who can score.
They do have yeah. But like, it's a matter of how does the dynamic change where you lose that one shot and how teams defend it. But yeah, like, I know, like, Ekman-Larsson back in his time in Arizona, I think he had, like, there was 2 seasons where he had double-digit in power play goals. He can do it. He can score on the power play. Now, he's not this. Now, that was a little while ago, his time back in Arizona, but I still think he is capable of doing that.
Yeah, so in 2014-15, when he was 23 years old, so we're talking 10 years ago, he had 23 goals that season. 10 of them came on the power play, and then the following year, he had 21 goals. 12 of them came on the power play. So, those 2 years, those were his top offensive seasons. When he was with Arizona, he had 43 and then 55 points respectively, back-to-back 20-plus goal seasons, and scored double-digit power play goals. So can he refine that form? I'm not sure. I think it would be obviously awesome for the Maple Leafs if he can, but you look back in the last 5 years total, he's got 8 power play goals in the last 5 years, only 1 in the last 2 seasons, as his plays kind of declined a little bit here, and he's been, asked to do a little less since he's crawled over the age of 30. So, I don't know if he's going to give you a whole lot when it comes to shooting the puck. I don't know if he necessarily has that heavy shot that, we've always yarned for here in Toronto when it comes to the power play. But I think that, he has shown in the past that he can get pucks through, right? Get pucks through. He's got a good pass. He's got good vision. And he can skate the line too. So I'll be curious to see what it looks like. Again, we haven't necessarily seen all of these, these teams get put together fully. But I'd imagine over the first little bit of the regular season, we'll probably get a glimpse at it.
Yeah, I can't. I'm interested to see if they actually do it.
Yeah. All right, last one for you, Dave. I'll sneak this in. Actually, it'll be a twofer. Cosign, no sign. Jeremy Swayman will cave and sign an extension somewhere in the neighborhood of $64 million in total.
I'm going to co-sign it, even though I will prefer if he didn't, because I want this drama to continue, because it has been such great theater.
Yes.
For like the last few weeks.
Would you like to explain why I threw out that number specifically and what happened today?
Yeah. Apparently it's not just the Leafs who like to make the drama of their contract negotiations. So as we all know, Jeremy Swayman's not at camp right now because he's still negotiating his new deal with Boston. And so Cam Neely decided to, at the press conference, when they were asking about what's the dollar figure, like they're trying to get a number out of Neely. Like they're trying to figure out where the two sides are at. And basically Neely said, yeah, he has 64 million reasons to be here at camp right now. Because the whole thing is, the Bruins want to get him 8x8. Well, if you do the math, 8 times 8, 64. Wow.
Yeah.
Just sounds pretty convenient for Neely to put that out there. Then you have the agent.
Is that the number
that they offered him?
No. Is that the number that you think gets it done? Like, obviously, that's not it. Obviously, Swayman's looking for more.
He is looking for more.
Is he going to get more?
I think maybe he'll get just above that. I think there'll be a bit of a compromise somewhere. Like, I know, like Neely said, there's what Swayman's looking at, a tier that he's looking at, and there's what they believe he should be getting. And I think there's going to be a bit of a compromise on that in some way.
Sounded like he's in the tier of Hellebuck, Price, Bobrovsky. That's kind of what it sounded like. That's what the reports were a little bit out there. And if that's the case, he's looking between 9.5 and 10.5 million. So let's say 10 million is what he's looking for. So he's not looking for 64. He's looking for the number 80. Like that's quite a ways away when you look at it. 64 million to 80 million.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money, right? We're talking about a $2 million per year difference on an 8-year deal. That's not easy to bridge, right? Not easy to meet somewhere in the middle. I'll be curious to see what ends up happening. It feels like both sides are pretty committed to digging their heels in, and I respect both sides for it. And when did the Leafs first play Boston? Actually, like, I'd be curious to see if the Leafs and Boston play soon enough in the regular season. October 26th. So it's soon enough in the regular season where it's and November 5th. So it's kind of twice within a 2-week span. I mean, I think they have a deal done by the time the Leafs do, but they did announce that Korpisalo is going to be their starting goaltender on night one. That was announced today as well. So even if Swayman comes back tomorrow, today, 2 days from now, they don't believe that he'll be ready to go quite quick enough to be the starter for game one. They've already given that to Korpisalo. So, but this is quite the predicament the Bruins have themselves in. I still can't for the life of me figure out why they trade away Allmark without having this thing done, because now Swayman knows, like, I have all of the leverage and I'm going to use it. And they didn't even take him to arbitration either. They're like, we're going to figure something out. Clearly not.
Clearly not. And like someone asked me, can they not sign him to an offer? It's like, can a team not sign him to an offer sheet? Are you going to offer what Swayman wants in the offer sheet? Because if he got what he wanted, he probably would have then that would put the pressure on Boston to make the decision.
What does the offer sheet calculator look like if he's looking for 10 million? Like, that would cost you 2 first-round picks, a second, and a third. I don't know how many teams will be looking to.
How many teams are also able to do that as well?
That too. Yeah, that would be tough. Or even if he comes in at like 9.1, just under that threshold, maybe a first, a second, and a third round pick. Maybe you think about it, but even at that point, it's that'd be a tough one to try and make happen. But
I mean, especially not. But I will give Louis Gross credit in that they're going to take a few days and then go from there. I think and Ellie Freeman wrote a report on it. Basically, essentially what this is going to do is don't get reactive, right? Don't let things like it's easy to react in the moment, especially if you're Swayman. He's probably pissed.
Mm-hmm.
That's something like that. Like it was so stupid. Like when I saw that he said that, I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, I believe Gross also did come out and say, actually, there's been no dollar figure that's been sent our way.
That's the first we've heard of 64 million. I doubt
we are going to hear about it. That doesn't mean it's the first time that Gross has heard about it, though. And I would tend to believe that a number has been thrown out there in that range. I don't think that Cam Neely would have said that unless that was the number that they had already presented to Swayman. That's my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, but
And I think it's the Bruins are putting the ball in Swayman's court and saying, "Look, we're prepared to offer you now."
That's a good contract. Like the guy's never been a starter in the NHL before. He's been a tandem goalie who's never played, 50 games in a season. Can
Yeah.
he do that? Does he have the longevity for it? And, does he have the mental makeup to do it? I don't know. Possibly he could, but like I'd want to know before I lock myself into someone for that type of money. Like that's where I'm confused. Like Swayman, he's asking for the world, but
Mhm.
I mean, guys who got that money before him were Vezina winners.
Yeah.
Like these guys were proven.
Yep.
He's still unproven. Like that's
Yeah.
where it's confusing. If he's not
Freeman-
taking 64 mil, like 8x8 as an unproven goaltender.
Yeah. Apparently Freeman said that Bruins were in about the 60 to 62 million range is what they were offering.
Well, today it sounds like it moved up to 64.
Apparently it's 64. But yeah,
So just to put it into perspective, he's played a career high of 44 games in the NHL last year. Before that, 37. Then he played 41 the year before that. So he's never played 50 games. He's never played. He's never had a starter's load before. He's been a tandem, a very good one. Won the William Jennings a couple of years ago as part of a tandem where the guy in front of him took home the Vezina that year, I might add. So I don't know. He's a great goalie. I do think he's one of the more talented young goalies in the NHL. But to be turning down like an 8x8 contract as a goaltender if you've never even played 45 games in a season seems a little rich for me.
See, the plan for him should have been establish himself as that like Vezina candidate, full tier like elite starter, then get that. Then you have to get they have to pay you that.
Well, is he a UFA next summer though?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Let me quickly see if I can find that. Because if that's the case, like, he's kind of screwed. Like, or Boston can't really just give him a 1-year prove it deal, if that is the case, right?
Yeah. So
Expiry status, RFA, arbitration eligible. Yeah, he would be. Yeah.
So that's the tough part, and them. Like if I was the Bruins, I would have taken them to arbitration this year, or I would have done it for this year. That way, you've had that locked in. Do it for the year or two, and then you work on a long-term deal. But they decided, nah, we think we can get a long-term deal. It's the Bruins believe that they had it all planned out. They would trade Allmark, make him, and then it just they didn't
actually. I do have one more year left of RFA status, so they could just both bite the bullet, and instead of signing a long-term deal, sign for one more deal, and then next summer figure it out. Right? Prove it. You want 10 million? Prove it. Prove you're worth it, right? Here, take 6 right now, and then next year we could talk about 9.5, 10 million. That's what they should do. But anyway, that's Boston's problem. We'll let Ian McLaren of Locked On Bruins focus on that. We can focus on our beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back for another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.